and this is Talking About Chronic Illness with Alex Woodland, and I have a special guest, Dave. And Dave, would you like to tell us about your condition and what it does?
My condition is a post-viral neuropathy. So it's dysautonomic neuropathy, which pretty much means everything from my esophageal sphincter all the way down that runs on automatic is messed up. That means my breathing, my digestion, all of my involuntary functions. This includes the heart as well, blood pressure, vasoconstriction, and vasodilation. And to some extent, the control of the chest wall that assists with breathing was also impacted.
So this is a form of autonomic dysfunction.
Yes.
So autonomic, the way I understood it, the term autonomic dysfunction is kind of an umbrella term for a lot of dysfunctions of the autonomic or automatic nervous system. And that includes things like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome and some more severe conditions such as yours.
Yeah, mine is interesting. Most of the people who wind up with what I got present similarly, but go in a different direction. I presented with gastroparesis and digestive tract paralysis, loss of temperature control, and low blood pressure. But where a lot of people would get POTS and have tachycardia, I went the other way. I went bradycardic. My heartbeats per minute were in the 40s and 50s.
Wow.
And they ran me on a treadmill and couldn't get it above like 110.
My goodness.
It's very peculiar. I wear an O2 meter when I work on my treadmill, and I'll go from the 80s or 90s. This is a 20-minute walk. I'll go from the 80s or 90s, and it'll drop to about 59 or 60 for about a minute while I'm exercising, and then my blood oxygen plummets until it recovers.
My goodness.
It's very peculiar, and I don't get warning when it happens. I'm just like, oh geez, why am I so dizzy? And then I look and I've got the meter to tell me.
Wow. So sounds like it's really hard to plan around that.
Yes, it makes a scheduled life challenging. And if I want to, if you want to go out or you want to do something, you have to plan well in advance. One of the effects I have is there are days I just can't go to the bathroom, and then there's days when I'm not going to get a lot of warning, but I can't not go to the bathroom. And one of the tips and tricks you learn, and I learned this from a friend of mine who is confined to a wheelchair, is, plan around it. You say, oh, hey, I'm having a good day. I can go out today. Or, if there's medication you can take to help move things along, you take it in the morning, and then you can do things in the afternoon or evening. Happily, especially the silver lining of the pandemic is that working from home is expected. So a lot of the problems and issues I had working in an office have evaporated, at least for the while.
Okay. So it definitely affects your day-to-day life. Do you So what are the things that you look forward to in a day, like your hobbies, or do you have a job or some sort of livelihood?
Yeah, I have a job that I really, really like. I work finding, I support the machines, and these are the most complex calculation machines I have ever encountered in my life. What they do is they find matches uh, between donors and cancer patients.
That's incredible.
And DNA is so complex. The amount of software and hardware to find those matches. There's a lot of upkeep and a lot of maintenance required to keep them running, and that's what I do.
That is so cool. So is this something you do from home so you could work around your condition?
Yes, because people in my company can be couriers, which actually take the life-saving cells to the patients. Where everyone at the company is basically 2 steps removed from people undergoing cancer treatment. So the entire company is working from home during this pandemic.
Were you working from home before lockdown?
Sometimes. Um, my employers understand that I have a condition, and sometimes it's difficult for me to make it into the office. So, good days, I'm in bad days, maybe I'm leaving early or I'm getting in a little later. But the nature of my work it's essentially it is technology, so I can do it from home. I'm fortunate in that.
That's great. Um, so what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Uh, I love to read, and I am an old school gamer. So we're talking like board games and D&D and all that kind of stuff.
My
Um,
children just started a D&D campaign with their cousins earlier today. So we get to see the
oh,
second generation of
awesome.
D&D players.
Excellent. Excellent. Yep, my older stepbrothers got me into the habit in the early '80s, and I like it. So those are my primary hobbies: is reading and gaming. They intertwine very well. Um, I wouldn't call it a hobby. Well, okay, I'm sorry. It is a hobby, but it's a new hobby, and that is making chocolate.
You'll be after a lot of girls' hearts with that.
As long as it's good, yeah, yeah. It's surprisingly like making wine. It turns out. Because the cocoa beans have to be fermented. So all the things you can do with wine and all the things that affect the flavors and characteristics of wine can affect the flavors and characteristics of chocolate. It's fascinating. Um, and I'm also dabbling with the end product where you learn to melt and temper and create chocolate confections. Because I like the whole thing from start to finish.
That is really cool. So, an amateur chocolatier. That's really awesome.
Yep, pretty much.
So, you said earlier that you were from the United States, as well as me. Have you found that your health insurance situation has affected the level of care that you receive?
Brutally. Um, when all of this started about 11 years ago, in December of 2009, I was living in California, Silicon Valley, and I had an HMO called Kaiser. And when all this started, I had all these symptoms hit, and they told me I had the flu for 3 solid months.
That's one heck of a flu.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's more of a work of a medical negligence, to be
Yeah.
honest. But they're an HMO. I asked for autonomic testing, and they told me they're expensive tests. You can't have them. So I guess the statute is up because I kind of sweet talked my way and actually got the care I needed at that time. But
That's
that took
great.
some doing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the but it was rough. I couldn't when it was at its most critical. I couldn't work, um, and I was scrabbling by on Cobra. Oh, hi, cat. My cat wants to join the call. Um,
Feline
so,
interruptus.
oh yeah. Well, this is a very precocious and interesting cat, at least. Um, uh, where was I? Oh, so I was on unemployment. I was struggling with Cobra, and I pretty much knew if I couldn't get regular checkups and find out how to survive what was happening, I was going to die. In fact, the Kaiser didn't really, I don't think they expected me to survive. They basically told me I had the flu for several months, then 50 pounds in 1 month. I had multiple organs going into the red. They finally admitted me into the cancer ward. Um, and then they finally started testing me. Um,
Wow.
and my friends all thought that was pretty much it. I was going to punch out. To be honest, I was of that opinion too, But since I am a nerd, I started found other people with uh, similar symptomology, and did some investigation. And I mean, I'm not a medical professional, but there are certain conditions that once you discover what they are, there are a suite of things that can cause them. Uh, and if it's not one, it's the other. And if you can treat the root cause, you can survive. What I ended up doing was treating the basically. I really don't want to say, "Hey guys, you should do this," but
Yeah,
Kaiser was
doctors
so
don't like that
unhelpful.
a
I
lot.
basically No, they don't. No, they do not. But they told me I had the flu. I snuck in to get intravenously fed and banana bagged for like 2 months because I couldn't keep anything
Wow.
down. Um, and what I ended up doing was treating that gastroparesis myself with prokinetic drugs, and it worked. I was able to keep 1 Ensure shake down a day, and over the next 7 to 8 months, it was from pure liquids to a little bit of baby food to baby food 3 times a day, um, and I was actually onto solid food at about month 8 or 9. Not a lot, but 8 to 10 ounces a day, and then after a while, after a couple months, 8 to 10 ounces a meal.
Wow. So that was quite the climb, and you had to do that yourself without any doctor's support.
Correct. Because I didn't get into Stanford until I had already gone through all that. And I said, when I told Stanford what I was doing and what had happened, they were like, "Yeah, come in. We want to talk to you." Because what happened to me, especially with the presentation, the gastroparesis, and that tends to happen more to women than men, and tends to have a different origin. For me to have what I had and the way it presented was, I guess, unusual. And all the support groups I was in, they're about 80% women, 20% men suffering this. So, so again, just like how my heart rate tends to be low and my blood pressure was through the floor, um, it was just a strange combination. They were interested and they admitted me, and oh, I've never been tested so thoroughly in my life.
Yeah. Um, Actually, I come from California as well. I was in the San Francisco Bay Area on Kaiser,
Oh,
and I moved across country to the DC area. And as a cruel twist of fate, the only insurance we could afford after moving across the country was Kaiser.
Oh,
There were PPOs, there were other HMOs, but the only thing that we could afford was going
oh,
crawling right back to Kaiser. But it was really funny. Kaiser here in the DC area was much different than Kaiser in California. But
hmm.
before my husband went to grad school in Virginia, they said, "Oh, well, we like the way California is doing things, so our East Coast Kaiser is going to find out what West Coast Kaiser's doing and copy that." And then I begged them. I'm just like, "No, don't do that. They almost killed me." Um,
Yep, they very nearly did the same to me. Yep. Oh, okay.
and oh,
Now it's a dual interview.
well, hello, Kat. How are you feeling today?
Actually, he knows I don't feel great, and he gets very clingy.
Oh, that's that's great. I miss having a pet. Um, I had a cat that crossed the Rainbow Road before we moved. So the funny thing is, my mother-in-law had a cat, so I was really excited. I'm just like, oh, I would love to take care of your cat now that I'm, you know, so close to you. And that cat was the biggest jerk. Total night and day difference between the cat that I dearly missed and my mother-in-law's cat.
Yep, I definitely got lucky with this guy. Um, he stress. He comes running. He checks up on me. He's very vocal.
Aw. So, um, one question I usually ask because um, you were actually the first male that I've had on this interview um, is I ask a lot of the women about doctors sending them to psychiatry, saying, oh, it's anxiety, it's stress, it's, it's a mental health issue. Have you had the same experience? Did any doctor try to kind of like push you into the mental health field?
No. I had different issues. I was obese when it began, and they just kicked me out. They were like, "Oh, you're losing weight. Great, go home." They never told me it was in
Wow.
my head. I never had to deal with that. The joyful medical negligence I got was, uh, look at the bright side. You're not as fat.
Wow. See, when I was pregnant, um, I was I started out overweight with my first pregnancy, and I was losing weight in my third trimester. And that was a big red flag. I'm like, no, this is not healthy. And every doctor, every OBGYN told me, oh, but it's good that you're losing weight. And I'm like, not in my third trimester. My child is going to need more than mom's fat stores to be a healthy child. And my second pregnancy with my daughter, I start like, okay, between pregnancies, I like gained 50 pounds because my metabolism had gotten so slow because I couldn't hold down anything. And so when I could finally eat again after pregnancy, I gained 50 pounds like right away and couldn't get it off. So it was even more so with my second pregnancy. I'm like, okay, I'm pregnant again. I can't eat again. I need help. And for some reason, they were so stingy with even IV hydration. They did not even want to give me IV hydration. And I'm just like, I can't keep down water and I am pregnant. I need some help. And they're just like, oh, but it's good that you're losing weight. It's good that you're losing weight. And I was 50 pounds less right before I delivered my daughter than I was at the beginning of my pregnancy. And that means with like the 30 pounds of baby weight, like the baby and the fluids and all that, I had literally lost 80 pounds of me.
Yep. They did something
And,
similar with me, so I snuck into the clinic to get banana bagged.
oh,
Because they ran a clinic out of that hospital building. So what I had done was went to the clinic to a completely different doctor and said, "Hey doc, this has been going on. I need this." And I, you know, uh, luckily I found this doctor, and he said, "Okay, let's just do it. No questions asked." Because I mean, he looked and said, "You are not in good shape."
yeah. It's just I wish my primary doctor agreed with you or would do something about
One
it.
thing, one thing that I learned is uh, it's okay to have very little tolerance for a primary doctor who says it's all in your head or refuses to help you. Fire them and get another one. That is the first piece of advice I have. Be your advocate. If they are not discharging their medical duty, broom them out the door and replace them.
And the good thing is with Kaiser, that's a very easy thing to do. You know, Kaiser, you could just, go on their app, click a button, new doctor, no questions asked. Um, so I guess that is the one, the one saving grace that Kaiser had. So is two more questions for you. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything that we haven't brought up yet that you would like to share or talk about?
Um, yeah, I suffer from a condition that is not primary, but because of what happened, the autonomic dysfunction, this condition is more likely to be what eventually gets me. Um, when it started, I had the autonomic failures, the blood pressure, breathing, oxygen, and all that. And what it became was very severe sleep apnea because the my head and my throat are very constricted. There's not a lot of space, so I'd struggled to get oxygen, and that damaged my heart. And by the time it was diagnosed, it had already been damaged. So now I'm on a CPAP pretty much forever, and I have heart damage with an arrhythmia. Um, it's treatable, but it doesn't get better. It just slowly progressive. So what I would say to anyone with an autonomic condition is, even if you don't snore, even if you don't have a history of sleep apnea, but especially if you do, get tested. Find out if you've got sleep apnea, because autonomic failure, if it affects your breathing and your oxygen at all, just compounds it and makes it so much worse.
I actually sleep with a CPAP myself, so I definitely second that advice. I was hoping my husband also has sleep apnea, but not autonomic dysfunction. And it was a life changer for him. So I was hoping that it would be this life changer for me. And it was kind of a letdown. It didn't really change my life, but it's not getting any worse.
Yes.
So, and I'm
Yeah.
protecting my heart. And
Yep, that's one of the number one things that it's going to do.
Yeah, so definitely good advice. Um, and one last question. If you were in front of a room of doctors with the opportunity to teach them something, what would you like to tell them?
Um, that's a doozy. Uh, I would tell them inform the patient fully. There's I don't know. A lot of doctors, I guess, play numbers. They say, well, it's likely to be this, so we're only going to talk about this. And a personal, in fact, I am uncomfortable if we don't cover every angle before we move ahead. I like to have things fully, or at least fully illuminated. And when they say it's probably this, so this is all we'll cover, I'll tell the doctor, oh no, I want everything. I want to know every single possibility here, because I want to be adequately prepared. And that's I guess that would be my words for a doctor. If the patient can handle it, or if the patient is looking for it, don't hold back. Um, there are people, and I understand it's not for everyone, who may have a condition or they do suffer, they genuinely do suffer, where if you try to cover every base, it's not going to go well. But for me, it was I needed to know all the details, because what was happening was so severe and so strange. Um, I needed to be able to try to deal with it before it dealt with me. And only looking down one avenue that was not productive wasn't doing it.
That's what frustrates me. A lot of times I will talk about my symptoms and the doctor will decide in 5 minutes what I have and then order tests that confirm that one thing and nothing else. Like, oh, it's probably this, we'll test for that. And then when the test goes back negative, I'm just like, yeah, it wasn't that. Oh, well, then you're fine. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. My response when they say you're fine is I say you're fired.
Oh yeah. I can't
And
count how many doctors I fired myself as well.
eventually, you find one who listens, who understands, and hang on to that one and kind of grow your team from there. When I moved across the country, I had to start over. And
That's a hard thing to do.
I've been here going on 2 years, and I'm still kind of hunting and pecking and trying to find the right team. I got very lucky with a couple members, and the others.
Yeah.
And unlike, I do have something else I think that's just very important to say,
Very
especially
good.
it's a man saying it. Unlike a lot of people, maybe especially who are men, and who have conditions, I actively sought psychiatric help, um, because living with this for a decade now, a little longer, and then there's a pandemic, and there's all kinds of other stuff going on, and I'm having trouble concentrating. Now, I am not an anxious person. I've never in my life had a panic attack, but I had anxiety getting a routine test, and I looked at the doctor and said, "This is weird. I need to have this checked. It's just like a symptom like anything else." Um, you know, don't hide from it. These are things that they do require attention. I sought psychiatric assistance for the symptoms I was experiencing. And when you almost die and you've had to be defibrillated multiple times, those are conditions that can, those are situations that can cause lasting damage, up to and including PTSD.
Um, I actually agree. For so long, the doctors were like, go to psych, go to psych, go to psych. And I'm like, no, this is medical, medical, medical. When I finally did go to um, seek psychiatric care, that was the first thing they said is, this is medical. And then instead of focusing on, oh, let's not be so anxious, it was how to advocate for myself, because that's something that I had to relearn. Because guess what, you hit the nail on the head. She diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder because of everything that I had went to trying to get help from doctors who weren't listening.
Yep.
So it is crazy how similar all these experiences have been so far.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of commonality in the medical practice in this country, and a lot of commonality between how women are treated, um, and then how people who have a tricky slash idiopathic condition are treated.
Definitely. So, we've hit about a half an hour. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
It was good talking to you.
It was wonderful talking to you, Dave. So, thank you for joining this talk about chronic illness. And this will be on YouTube tomorrow. And Dave, I will send you the information so you can see it on YouTube. Uh,
And then I can cover my eyes and go, oh my god, it looks so horrible.
it's the internet. Like I've been seeing issues with the stream almost crashing this whole time. I've been kind of like babying it. So thank you so much, and
Thank you.
we'll see you next week.
Um, this probably won't make the cut, but do you want to see something incredibly cute?
Absolutely.
This is his preferred way to hang.
Oh,
He lies supine, and I gotta cradle him in an arm.
oh, there we go.
Yeah, he's a. My brother said I got the dog and he got the cat. His dog was very standoffish, and this guy just craves attention. And I've never known an animal that likes to be touched as much as this cat.
Wow, and usually cats are very snooty and like, no, give me my space.
Yep, he's super bonded.
Oh. Well, thanks again, Dave. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.